Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sport here on YouTube. It's me, Joe Stanley. I'm joined again by Seb True, and we're going to be doing an episode this week called The Sack Race, where we're talking about which managers are in danger of the sack in the Premier League. Yeah, we had come up with the idea and title before the breaking news this morning that Scott Parker is sacked by Bournemouth this morning after a couple of defeats. 4 games into the season, Seb, and it is early days to be talking about sackings. But with the form of a few clubs here, it doesn't look good for a few managers in these positions, Seb.
No, it doesn't. But I'm surprised Scott Parker went just to come on the news of Scott Parker. I mentioned to you before, it's like if a dog takes a shit and you get angry. It's like, what did you expect? That's what the whole Scott Parker thing is. And he got Bournemouth into the Premier League with probably a squad that is good in the Championship, but definitely not good in the Premier League. I'm very proud to say that on this video earlier in the season, I said Bournemouth were probably one of the worst teams to grace the Premier League. We'll see if they beat Derby's record. But to come on to the actual matter now, because Scott Parker is gone, that's the first gone. We're thinking of the next ones. And referring to video of ours, this is what I said. Have a great academy. Oh no, I've got the wrong minutes. Oh. 11. Gerrard probably one of the first managers to go. Yeah, I think Gerrard was one of the first managers that would have gone, and I still think that. Look at their terrible start that they've had. They lost to Bournemouth. They lost to Bournemouth and looked abysmal. And I don't get what Gerrard's doing. His next games are up against Manchester City and Arsenal. Good luck to him, because I think it's going to get very tough for him.
Yeah, I think obviously it doesn't look good for Steve G. You said, what was it, Man City and Arsenal the next 2 games coming up, or so Arsenal?
Yeah.
Is it Wednesday night, and then
Arsenal tomorrow, and then Man City at the weekend.
Man City
But then, to be fair, if he survives that, then he has 2 games against Leicester and Southampton, teams that they should be beating. Leicester, I think they could get a result, no problem. Southampton, I know Gerrard beat them 4-0 in his only game as manager of Villa against Southampton, but I still do see him struggling to get a result. Let's not forget as well, Southampton was the fixture that cost Dean Smith his job, so it could cost Gerrard his job as well. And while there are rumours about that Pochettino might be in for the Villa job, I think that only makes Gerrard's position look even more delicate.
I'll tell you what, if Pochettino goes in at Villa, that'll be a very good appointment, I think.
Excellent appointment. It's a step down for him. Let's not kid ourselves. But if they can get in Pochettino, Pochettino has to regain the reputation he made at Southampton and Tottenham. And with finances, which he was complaining about not having at Tottenham, then who knows what he could do with Villa.
We do have a few comments in. Bambi says 2 beauties of a heart, and then he also said after one League Cup game, the fans were chanting Gerrard out, so going to be a tough with the current fixtures ahead for Stevie.
He's created conflict in the dressing room. What's the whole thing with Tyrone Mings? I've heard there are more fallings out as well. If he's not getting the result, then he should at least have the players on side. Like, I'll give an example. Arteta. We can criticise him all we want, but at least when the going gets tough, Arteta has the backing of his players, and that we cannot deny. But Gerrard has created such a divide in the dressing room that I think he's just shooting himself in the foot.
Yeah, I'm a massive Stevie G fan, as you know. Obviously, anyone that knows me knows that I love Steve G. Grew up idolising stuff.
The win percentage is the same as Lampard's at Everton.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, Seb. The connection dropped out. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah,
no worries.
Massive, like as I was saying, massive Gerrard fan stuff. But even I can see through this that it's not good. And he apparently had, as a leadership, at Liverpool, he was a very good captain. And there was a lot of times where there was arguments there. He carried the teams instead of the managers. But at the same time, I don't think he's really adapted his approach to management. His man management skills, the leadership skills. I think he still acts like he's the captain in the dressing room, and that's not what you need at times. You need to take yourself out of that player role, and when you're a manager, and you got to make the tough decisions, which he has done. But with like you said, with Tyrone Mings thing, sometimes you just got to grow up and get on with it.
Well, let's just manager and captain aren't the same thing. It might be one thing knowing how to steer the boat on your own, but it's another trying to tell everyone else how to do it. It's not the same role at all. But yeah. Legendary player doesn't make you a great manager. Well, yep. Now, I don't think he's got long. That's what I was going to say. But there are other managers that are in the discussion for the sack race. Obviously, I mean, you mentioned some before we came on, didn't you, Joe?
Yeah, I've mentioned. I think, like we've mentioned, Frank Lampard's close. I think obviously we know Parker's gone. Rodgers is close as well, and I think Bruno Lage could be an outside one. There's not been any discussions about Wolves being unhappy with him at the moment, but when they haven't won a game since the 2nd of April, it's a little bit of a worry. Let's be honest. And with the being in the bottom three, as we said before, it doesn't look good really at Wolves, especially when they can't seem to score goals at the moment.
Well, they've never been able to score goals. This is nothing new. Yet their transfers seem to underwhelm constantly. They've brought in strikers in the past, young players like Fabio Silva, Patrick Petrone, and now they've sold Morgan White, Gibbs White. They should be able to bring in another striker. What's more disappointing is they actually are playing okay. They dominated against Newcastle, a good Newcastle side, and just lapsed concentration for a short period, and the match is a draw. What's worrying is their first two matches with Leeds and Fulham. They'd have expected points from those games. They got one. They played better than Tottenham, got none. They played better than Newcastle, got one. It's a pattern that keeps continuing, and those sort of patterns are hard to break, especially when you can't score goals. Now, I don't know if Lage has got long. Wolves are not the kind of club to sack mid-season, but let's not be surprised they do. Good thing for them, they've got Bournemouth coming up next, and if you can't score, what better team to play at the moment?
Yeah, if we're looking at Wolves' next fixtures, that you said Bournemouth tomorrow night at 7:30. Bit of a strange kick-off
And
time.
Southampton after it, another team that you can score goals against. They are wide open if you expand play enough. But then they've got Liverpool, Man City, so they need to get points in the next two games before the Liverpool and Man City games.
Yeah, that's ideal two fixtures, isn't it? The Bournemouth and the Southampton ones, as you said. But then you're looking at the Liverpool, Manchester City, and you got a fearful of in those ones. How many fixtures can you actually see them getting results in?
Well,
Really?
let's extend it a bit. If they don't get results in the next two, they play Liverpool, Man City, West Ham, then Chelsea. Now that is not an easy run of fixtures. West Ham might be easier at the moment, but it's not like Wolves can score, so it could be a draw at best. I think, given the way they are at the moment. Bruno Lage might not have long. He might not, but I don't think Wolves are that kind of club. They won't panic. They never really do. So I think he might be all right. I think on the other hand, Leicester will see the squad that they have, despite the lack of transfers, and say, Rodgers, this is not good enough.
My question is like with Wolves before we move on to Leicester and Brendan Rodgers, with Wolves, who do they get in to replace Bruno Lage if they do decide to pull the trigger in and sack him? That's my
Oh
question.
well, there's a great crop of young Portuguese managers. There's even one at Fulham at the moment who's doing quite well, in my opinion. So I don't think Wolves will struggle to get anyone in. And given their way of working, it will be a Portuguese young manager. There was one link with Everton not so long ago. He might be available. Who knows? I don't doubt that Wolves have a scouting system in place if Bruno Lage were to be let go.
So moving on from one Midlands club to another. So you got obviously we were saying about Wolves Large being in trouble there. We got Brendan Rodgers. Yes, I know people that are regulars to the channel will know I'm not a fan of Brendan Rodgers, but he has won silverware wherever he's gone, minus Liverpool. But yeah, it doesn't look good. This season stats 0.4 points per game, win percentage of 0. I don't know how that works actually, and then 1.2 goals per match with two conceded. So yeah, that's the stats on this website. I'm not sure how
I'm
true.
sorry, you're confused that you've done it on a per game basis. Is
Yeah,
that right?
it's come up on the website with a
Okay,
game.
so 4 games played, 6 goals scored, 10 conceded, 1 point. That's probably easier.
Yeah, and his career managerial stats is 51.54% win percentage. So yeah,
It's not terrible, is it? Let's be perfectly honest. He's managed, okay, then again, he has managed Celtic and Liverpool, who should be getting upper tier percentages. But he did do well at Leicester at first. You can't deny that. But I think I mentioned as well on our show earlier before the season started. Brendan Rodgers doesn't last long in jobs. He doesn't stay there for an eternity. There's a point to which he kind of, I think, loses all passion. I think it's just that simple. I think he loses that motivation and that drive. But yeah, if I look at Leicester, the worrying one was against Southampton last week, and then also the way they put up no fight to Chelsea this weekend when it was 11 against 10. Never did it look like Leicester would score, and that's worrying. That's really worrying.
yeah, like you said, yeah, you've seen about the fact that the Southampton they looked poor last week. They did have the lead for that James Maddison goal, didn't they? And then I don't know what happened defensively. They just seemed to fall off. And I think it was an interesting point when you said about the fact that he doesn't last long at football clubs. He lasted about just over 3 years at Liverpool, similar amount of time spent at Celtic, I think was it, and then he's on his third, fourth year at Leicester now. It's very
Well,
interesting.
same could be said about Swansea as well when he was at Swansea.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, all the clubs, the same thing. He doesn't really last long. But Swansea was different because he got another job. Let Celtic the same. He got the Leicester job. But the squad really makes me worry. So if you see that they sold Fafana, they've played Amati at the back at the moment, and Amati's always been a squad rotation player in that Leicester squad. Scintillating, who was catastrophic last season, can't get in the team. They're all over the place, and they're not doing anything to rectify it. They bought Investigard, who's also barely played because he's catastrophic. They made some weird transfers last season, and they're trying to make it last this season as well and make it work. Maybe give the transfers from last year a bit more time. But Rodgers is not doing the job at the moment.
the interesting thing as well with the whole not lasting long at clubs. Obviously, he went on to Liverpool from Swansea, as you said, and Leicester from Celtic. So those are a bit anomalies, but he's Jose Mourinho's apprentice, or one of Mourinho's apprentices, along with AVB. And neither of those apprentices, like Jose, doesn't tend to stay at a club long, does he? He tends to stay 3 years max and goes. And then the apprentices seem to have the same model. It must be something about that mould of manager, that type of manager.
I think it's different. I wouldn't really associate that with Jose Mourinho. I look at AVB and Andre Villas-Boas, with all due respect, he doesn't really like football as much as most managers do. I think Brendan Rodgers, it's just his personality where he is always excited for the moment, but not excited for living it. So at first everything goes great, and I think he does lose a bit of patience near the end. I don't think they're really connected to Jose Mourinho. I think it's just a modern day manager as well.
We have a few comments below as well. We've got Luke Tanner says, Steven Gerrard, legend of a player, but being a legendary player doesn't make you a great manager, which is what you said before, wasn't it, Seb? Bambi says, I think a lot of the time with Gerrard, Carragher and Hippier were the vocal leaders, whereas Gerrard did his leading by playing, his playing style on the pitch. He also says that he thinks what could help Bruno a bit more is that Wolves aren't large of the expectations at Villa, Everton, and Leicester. They are very high, and he finds Rodgers that he does well, but then when things start to go pear shaped, he doesn't have the ability to fix it. Basically,
Yeah, and that's a really difficult thing to do as a manager, just generally fix when things are going badly. It's pretty cliche. I'd say the same about maybe when things go a bit wrong for Arteta. It's probably the hardest part of management, isn't it? Getting it right when things go wrong. Look at what Klopp's done in the past to come close to City last season. That's a great manager. But then again, they're a rare breed. I'm going to talk about someone else who I wouldn't consider in danger, but should be in the discussion. Do we think David Moyes is in danger?
He's overachieved the last 2 seasons, hasn't he, really, at West Ham?
Has he bought goodwill to last through this rut. That's mainly probably the point we're trying to get at. Because they have not done great at the beginning of this season, but they've spent a bit. They've got Maxwell Connolly in, they've got Schumacher in, they've brought in now Paqueta, who I think is a really good signing. They brought in Thilo Kehrer, who I have my doubts about. They're investing. They are investing now. Moyes beat a really terrible Aston Villa side, and that's the only goal and 3 points they've got this season. Is he in danger?
I think he's brought enough goodwill with the Europa League run last season and the performance in the league last season to.
But this isn't going to get better. They've got Europa League matches coming up. That's the problem. Not this week, but next week. So they've got a midweek fixture this week. They've got a midweek fixture next week, and the same pattern continues for quite a while. That squad is going to be depleted. It already looked immensely fatigued at the beginning of the season. That isn't going to get much better, especially with players who keep getting injured, because they look like a squad that is also falling away early on in the season with injuries. And this is not his fault. He's got a very, very thin squad to work with, and he's performed miracles. But it's a results business, and West Ham owners will look at it and go, the results aren't there, whatever the case. What do we do? Manager gets fired. That's usually the consequence. So I'm curious to see if Moyes can keep his job through the storm. Let's just say.
Do you think there could be a scenario? It sounds like a daft one, but where West Ham use it as like a throwaway season, a transitional season, and say, look, last season took its toll on the squad, the fatigue. It's a weird season with the World Cup in the middle. We let him invest, let him bed the players in this season, and then next season, then we'll judge you properly then, as long as they're not in like a relegation battle. I think Paqueta's a good signing. The Paqueta centre midfield partnership would be a good one. It does sound like something you can have for tea, a paqueta of rice, but
paqueta rice. But I think that was something that needed to be addressed. Souček, for the great first season that he had, has massively dropped away, and it's taken its toll on Rice as well. So Paqueta's a really good signing. I think it's a clever signing. I think Schumacher's a good signing. I think it'll take him time to get into it, but I think out of the Italian league, there are not many players that could come over to the Premier League. For a player that played in Serie A, I don't think there are many that could come over to the Premier League and seem like they were made for it. I think Schumacher is one of the rare ones that could do it in the Premier League. But it still remains to be seen that their fixture list just looks horrible. They've got Tottenham coming up this midweek. They've got Chelsea. Then they've got Europa League. Then they've got Newcastle, Europa League, and it finally gets easy with Everton and Wolves. But that's just a handful of games in 2 weeks. Now, tomorrow's the 31st, and then all those games that I was mentioning to the second Europa League game, that's 5 games in 2 weeks. If they come out with no injuries, that's a miracle.
There's a lot of games, isn't it?
It's an immense amount of games.
You don't actually realise how, and it's even worse, I suppose, with the World Cup in November. They're trying to cram as many of the European. I think they're trying to actually get the whole European group stage done before November, aren't they? So they're just absolutely cramming those fixtures in.
Yeah, the last one's on the 3rd of November, but then that's also the same logic applied to the Premier League. That we've got a midweek fixture up early in the season. I've never seen that before. That's a really odd one. The 5th game of the season being a midweek one. So they're cramming it all in. And West Ham will have internationals going away on duty. It's not like maybe Nottingham Forest will have a lot that stay back. But West Ham will have people going to the World Cup. That's the problem as well. They're not getting a break, and that squad is going to be stretched as much as possible. So I think David Moyes might be in trouble. And that's none of his doing, but just unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah, we're looking at it, obviously, like the top ones. Before we move on to the last manager we're going to discuss, Frank Lampard. Looking at the table, Leicester bottom with 1 point, Wolves 2 points, second bottom, Everton third bottom, 2 points. Then you've got Bournemouth with 3, along with West Ham, and then Villa all on 3 points. Not looking good for any of them, really.
No.
And then Forest, Southampton. I don't think Steve Cooper's in trouble yet. I think he's got enough goodwill from Forest for getting him up.
He took over Forest when they were last in the Championship, and he got them to the promotion spot in the same season. The guy's worked wonders there. He deserves. He could have lost 18-0 to Liverpool at the weekend, and he should stay in that job.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I don't think Hasenhüttl, he was one that I worried for at the start of the season, but for some reason he seems to have got a run of results together at the moment, so I think he's safe for the time being.
I did say it also, again, referring to my own quote, because I'm being extremely big-headed this time around. I said, and I watched it back before, Hasenhüttl, I think, will finish high enough in the table because he'll perform miracles with that squad that is a championship squad. I still believe that. I still believe Southampton's squad is a championship squad, running on maybe good runs, good little spells and games from Adams and Ward-Prowse. But if you look at the likes of Stuart Armstrong, who plays quite regularly, I think even Romeo, these players, or Adam Armstrong, they're all championship players. Look at the goalkeeper they brought in. They brought in a goalkeeper from Portsmouth. He might be a great prospect, but that's the goalkeeper who's starting matches for them. It says a lot about their transfer dealings in the last few seasons. Yeah, I think it's a championship squad, and he's doing really well with it to just have 4 points after 4 games. But I was impressed with Bella Kotchap in the game against United the other day. I thought he played very well.
So we're going to move on to the last manager that we think's in danger, and it's Frank Lampard at Everton. Everton, he kept them up last season. Did a good job there, to be fair, keeping them up in the end. It looked bleak for them going into April, but he managed to turn it around. Surprisingly, his managerial win percentage isn't that low. It's 47.02%. So, and he's managed 100.
Yeah, but it's about 32% at Everton. So, and he was at Chelsea. So, he finished top 4 with Chelsea. Brought in the young players. That counts for a short career. That 1 season and a half he had at Chelsea, that really hampers his stats because he's not had more than a season as a manager at a club. At one club, I mean. So, I'd say that we still need time to judge Lampard as a manager, but I don't think it's looking great. I'll just say that I think Everton it sounds really bad to say this, and I have nothing against Everton. I think it's a cursed club now since Moyes left. We talk about Sir Alex Ferguson leaving United and the curse that's been on Old Trafford since then. We don't talk about how much of a hole David Moyes left at Everton, because how many managers have succeeded since he left?
How many managers have succeeded at Everton?
I've done well.
Bobby Martinez had a good first season, but fell off second. Ronald
That's
Koeman,
true, actually.
Because the points he got in his first season,
74 points he got in his first season. That's amazing.
Would have got Champions League any other season, which was bizarre.
Yeah.
Then you look at Koeman was awful. Silva was awful. Sam Allardyce was caretaker, but God, that's boring football. I do not wish that Sam Allardyce football on my worst enemy.
Marco Silva. And I think Marco Silva's a terrific manager. When he was sacked by Everton, I was like, well, it's going to be a black mark on his resume, but look what he's doing with Fulham. I think it's early days for Fulham, but I think it's really good what he's doing. And I highly rate Marco Silva. I rated him since the days at Hull City, had a short spell at Watford that ended because of Everton. And now at Fulham, I think he's doing terrifically. So I wouldn't judge him from his Everton time. And then you look at Carlo Ancelotti, which, let's be honest, for the aura that he brought, the transfers he brought in, we can't say Carlo Ancelotti did exceptionally at Everton. We just can't. So we can go on, and with Rafa Benitez as well, who eventually got sacked, I think the club has got fundamental problems.
Oh, the club needs stripping from top to bottom.
Well, even just looking at the transfer policy. So Everton struggle for goals. Who should we get in? The guy who's been criticised by Brighton and every single pundit because he doesn't score enough goals, Neil Maupay. Okay, that really is weird. That's just so weird. Neil Maupay is great at some things and a lot of things in football, but goal scoring, we've seen at Brighton, is not his thing. Everton needed the goal scorer, and they brought in Neil Maupay. It's like they want us to criticise them. You know what? If you're Everton and you've got the money, just say, Mitrovic, come to Everton. Just do it. Don't mess around with players who can't get goals. I don't know. I really don't get it.
apparently it was between Maupay and Ben Brereton Diaz from Blackburn, and Brereton Diaz was going to cost 15 million. He's available on a free next summer, so Blackburn might be cashing in now so that they don't lose out on a big payday for the club. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's a big jump between the Championship and the Premier League, but he's done it on an international level for Chile. He performs well there, and I think to myself, I'd rather take the gamble on the young lad that's confident and scoring goals in the Championship than the lad that's been in the Premier League for years.
For Brighton's side, that creates a lot of chances. Or well, now not so much in this Premier League season. There's a different style. But Neil Maupay has missed a lot of chances. Brighton's XG is so high, but they don't convert chances. And who was at the focal point of all that? Neil Maupay. So you see, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Neil Maupay is great at some things, but he's not a goal scorer in my opinion.
No, and that's what Everton need, someone that can stick the ball in the net. And if Anthony Gordon goes, which Lampard said the rumours the £60 million bid is not true, that they only had one, which was the 40 that was rejected. But if Anthony Gordon does go, hypothetically speaking, say Chelsea chuck in a late bid or someone else chucks in a late bid late on, realistically, that's another attacking threat gone from Everton. I can't see them getting anyone of that quality in. He's not the finished article, Anthony Gordon, but if that he comes in, they're in trouble. I think.
Yeah, he's not the finished article, but they're so reliant on him at the moment, which says a lot about where Everton are.
I think defensively, Tarkowski wasn't a bad signing on a free transfer. You could argue that they've probably got the wrong Burnley defender. They probably might, like you said previously, they should have gone for Ben Mee. You said in our preview video, but I think with Everton, do they have enough to survive? I think yes, but I think it might be after Frank goes, and I think we'll see around the World Cup time a few managerial changes, and I think Gerrard and Lampard will definitely be among those ones.
Yeah, I think we're at that point where the two favourites are Gerrard and Lampard. Then people are like, who's the better one, Gerrard or Lampard? And then someone still manages to throw Scholes in the conversation.
At least these two are managing in the Premier League. Scholes couldn't even do it at Oldham.
Well, yeah, they're going to say that, aren't they? Scholes is still better. Manager of Oldham.
He couldn't even do it at his own club, Salford, when he was caretaker.
Yeah, that was something else. But I remember again gloating about my own prediction. I said Gerrard and Lampard, I see the first ones going, and by what I've seen so far, I think that's still valid. Yeah.
Shadi Shah says Joe said Liverpool need a midfielder before the transfer window closes. What do you think about that? We've only got about a minute left on the thing because for some reason Zoom's put a time on it.
Doesn't work on the 2 anymore. Yes, they need a midfielder. I've said since Thiago came in, he's injury prone. Now it's aging. Henderson's looking tired, and Milner looked atrocious against United. Yes, they need a centre midfield because you just have Curtis Jones and Elliott in there, for instance. It's a bit lightweight. Bellingham would be perfect. Go, Joe.
Yeah, Bellingham, got to agree, would be perfect. I think he's going to come in next summer for £100 million. There's rumours that they're going to go for 3 midfielders next summer, but obviously they want to bring one forward because of the issues there. Neves was linked, would be a good signing, 25. Frenkie de Jong's a pipeline dream.
Great signing, Neves would be. Go
on. Frenkie de Jong would be a dream, but I can't see it hopefully get one in a couple of days, but I don't know. And with the sack race, you've heard all our thoughts. Gerrard and Lampard will be gone by the World Cup. So thanks for everyone for watching. Thanks for everyone for watching, and we'll see you all very soon.
Thank you, Joe.